On the 16th of January 2024, I was sitting alone in a £670 car that I'd bought from Facebook Marketplace at Beaconsfield service station, driving home from London after a day's work. But I'd been really thinking about how I'd been spending my time on my YouTube channel, which was then called Next Level Chops. Now, this was a channel that I'd made in August of 2016. It was something that was very close to my heart, something that had brought me many friendships, many ups, and also, unfortunately, many downs as well. It was something really that I'd always wanted to do to prove to myself that I could make a YouTube channel and make a success of YouTube, just really to prove to myself that if somebody else was doing it, then I could learn how to do it. Maybe naively I named it Next Level Chops because chops, for any of you non-drummers watching, is kind of a word that means like cool stuff that you can play, you know. So it's not really the essential things that you need to be a good drummer, as in like playing drum beats, playing grooves, useful fills. The word chops really means kind of absolutely shredding on the kit, basically, which, to be honest, I wasn't really very good at. I started the channel as a drum channel, and again, rather naively, I decided that I was going to try and create the British Drumeo. Now, Drumeo, for those who don't know, is the biggest drum channel in the world. Basically gives you access to all the best drummers in the world. I think at the time you could sign up for like $1 a month, maybe, and there's like infinite lessons on there, and you know, all this great stuff. It's amazingly well filmed, the sound is brilliant, you know, great presenters, all that stuff. And I was renting a lockup, and I'd put some eBay sound tiles on the wall. I didn't have any microphones, I didn't have a camera, and I had no recording experience, no presenting experience, no video editing experience. I had no experience, fundamentally. And this probably showed because, you know, my videos weren't quite as good, perhaps. In fact, my first video on Next Level Chops was actually done from a first floor flat in Kidderminster. Basically, I found this drum kit behind some bins. It was like a child's drum kit. And it was effectively a bass drum and a snare drum, but it didn't really make a snarey sound. It didn't really do that. I think there was a cymbal, if I remember, and it was missing, well, everything else, really. But I got this because, well, it was free. It was behind the bins, you know. You're not going to leave it there, are you? My kind of idea was like, Drumeo shows the best drummers and it's like the best equipment and all this. But what if you've got no equipment? You know, what if you've got like no money? Like, can you still learn, get involved? And whereas, again, Drumeo would use this kind of really cool notation, so it follows along what you're playing on the screen and all that kind of stuff, which is brilliant. I didn't know how to do that. So what I would do is I bought a notepad and I would draw pictures of each part of the kit, and then I had a separate piece of paper which I would take a photo of it with a tripod, and then in a sort of Wallace and Gromit style, frame by frame, move it across so it would show you where you were within the bar, and then I would painstakingly edit it on a laptop that I had, which was not very good. I don't even think it was mine, to be honest. I think it was probably my mom's. So I would do that and then superimpose it. By that I mean I didn't know how to cut it out, so I'd just like layer it so you had like a big white border over it, if that makes any sense. So I ended up with this lockup anyway, this like studio. And then I was like, well, I need to get a camera. So I bought a GoPro Hero 4 secondhand off probably Marketplace. GoPro being an action camera, great for snowboarding and skateboarding and other types of boarding, but not so great for like audio. They do a pretty good job if you use them live, but they're not really the same as what Drumeo had. You know, thousands of pounds worth of proper microphones, somebody who knew what they were doing. Also, it's like massively fisheyed, so anything in the middle of the frame looks sort of normal-ish, but anything in the edges looks kind of warped and like, you know, the sort of look I mean. So after buying the GoPro and realising that perhaps it wasn't, you know, quite the best thing that I could have bought, you know, I should have probably bought a proper camera really, I decided to follow that up by buying 2 more GoPro Hero 4s, and then like spent loads of money on little battery packs that go on the back and some little nice blue metal cases. I wasn't doing proper multicam, to be honest. What I was doing was piling all the clips up on the timeline and then just removing the bits of the ones I didn't want. It takes ages. Don't do that. Learn multicam. It's not that difficult. And by this point, it was probably, you know, 2017, maybe even 2018 when I got the lockup, but I don't remember the timeline off the top of my head. And there, I met one of my dearest friends, who was also a drummer, and who also had basically taught himself videography. He helped me very kindly with me learning, you know, some video stuff, and also learning a little bit more about like sound and stuff like that, because he kind of knew lots of stuff that I didn't know, which was great. You know, that's the thing. Don't be the smartest person in the room, otherwise, you know, you can't learn anything from anybody. So this was great, and I remember spending so many late nights. I was committed, at the very least I was committed. I released 2 videos a week for around 18 months from that point. I'd try all this different stuff, you know, I'd try like vlogs when I'd go away with a band, so like we go to Ireland every year, so I'd do like a vlog of Ireland, and then we had the jazz festival, Birmingham Jazz Festival. I'm not a jazz drummer, but you know, I'd vlog the jazz festival. Today we're here, and then we're doing this gig, and then we're doing this gig, and here's a bit of playing and all this stuff. And none of it was really sticking, to be honest. It wasn't working very well. I'd maybe get like 300 views, drop off a cliff, video disappears from YouTube, never to be seen again. It's there, but nobody watches it, and it gets maybe a view a month until, you know, I perish at the end of it. So I realised that me by myself, A, I wasn't really a good enough player to attract the audience that I wanted. B, I wasn't probably the best presenter. C, I didn't really have the equipment. And there's probably a D. I mean, take your pick, do you know what I mean? But I realised that in order to make up for some of these shortcomings and some of these things that I felt like I hadn't learnt yet, but I could with enough time, I would need other people. I would need some help. I actually started getting in touch with some of the best drummers that I kind of half knew in the UK. So one day at the lockup, a drummer named Sticky Wicket came down. Now Sticky, he's got a great reputation as one of the best drummers in the UK, and he's massively into antique and vintage drums, got an incredible collection. He's a really cool guy, dresses really well, and he's just oozes charisma, basically. We got talking, we got really excited, the two of us. We were like, right, we can do some videos together that are going to be different to anything that's on the internet. We're going to talk about vintage drums, antique drums. There's a guy in America, and he does some cool vintage drum videos, but he doesn't really, from what I've seen, talk in depth about like the history. He more will like set up a nice vintage kit, play it, and he's a great player, play some cool stuff, and then that's kind of the video. So that was kind of what he was doing. And we had this idea that we're gonna, you know, talk about the drums, and we're gonna tell the history of the drums, which is fascinating if you don't know it. So basically, first video, he brings along a really cool Gretsch vintage kit. And at this point, I bought my first actual camera. I know. And I'd bought a microphone similar to the one that I'm using now, but it was probably placed much further away than this one is, because we had to get both of us in the frame. So, you know, we didn't have option to record separate. I couldn't do that at the time. We basically put out the first video, which I think was just some playing. He just played a little solo. It basically did a little better than any of the videos I'd done. So next he brings along something even more unusual, even cooler, with some weird stuff sticking out of it. Something that most drummers will have never seen in their tiny lives. Sure enough, we talk about it, he plays it, he does a great demonstration of it, does a little solo. Again, the audio probably wasn't brilliant because we just put a PA speaker next to him and just sort of recorded that as it was, basically. It wasn't, again, separate audio, we didn't have that as an option. The videos started, after we did 3, 4, 5 of them, to gain a little bit of traction. And I think we went from somewhat like 300 subscribers, which had taken me like a couple of years to get, you know, really, really slow. I'd wake up and if I saw I had a new subscriber, I'd lose my tiny mind. Quite quickly, we went to sort of 5,000 and then we went to 10,000 and, you know, things were starting to gain a little bit of momentum, a little bit of traction. Then, a bit later on, I lost use of the lockup, which was annoying because I didn't have anywhere suitable to film at my house. You know, I lived with my parents at the time. Can't be bringing these giant drum kits in there. There's not space. So we decided that we were going to film at Sticky's house. Brilliant. He's got dedicated space, no neighbours. And I think by this point I'd even bought a second camera. So we had like proper multicam now. We were kind of making some kind of progress. It wasn't Drumeo, but actually it wasn't trying to be Drumeo, which perhaps was why it was working. And we kept doing this. We kept working. I would drive over to his house in my MX-5, set up, and I'd stay 2, 3, 4 nights in a row sometimes. And we would get, a few videos, and we'd work really hard. We'd sit next to each other at his dining room table until whatever time in the morning. And we would make sure that every piece of B-roll, every close-up, and every bit of audio was as good as we could make it at the time. Now, granted, I wasn't using TV quality cameras, I wasn't using cine cameras or anything like that. I was using my sort of £500 Lumix G7 and a second-hand Lumix GH4. And one day we were filming part of a series called Vintage Chops and Grooves. Now remember, we talked about the word chops earlier in the video. Cool stuff. Grooves, drum beats, basically. Vintage, old stuff. And basically, for this video, it entailed Sticky talking about the kits, but also playing along to a couple of different antique tracks, basically. Can I say antique tracks? You know what I mean. There was one that he did, ton of takes of. He basically decided, you know what, we're not going to use that actually, we're going to do a different track. So we had this bit of footage and we put the video out with a couple of different songs instead, and we kind of forgot about it. And then we had a bit of downtime after one of the days of filming, and we decided, you know what, that take was pretty good actually. Let's just see if we could edit it together and just put it out as a song, like put it out as a drum cover basically. So we have a look, and I realised I'd lost 2 of the camera's footage. All we had was the wide shot, which wasn't great because I'd put a tripod behind the kit that was so high up to get like the angle that you couldn't see the camera on top of it, with footage that we didn't have. So we just put it up anyway. This ended up being our most viewed video of all time. We ended up with over 1 million views on this video. That totally baffled us because we'd been putting in all this work on every single video. We were like, we're really trying here, and then we put this out. It's got a stupid tripod in the background and people would lose their minds. We were chuffed, but it was confusing. And we had another problem. The main thing was we weren't making any money. The channel was monetized, so we'd get a little bit of ad revenue, but that was a problem for 2 reasons. Number 1, ad revenue is the worst way of making money on YouTube. Most channels, especially at the time, would gain around $1 per 1,000 views. So you can imagine you need a lot of views. Now you might think, okay, well you had 1 million on there. That's some maths that I can't do in my head. Probably should be able to do in my head. But it wasn't as simple as that because we were playing to songs, which meant that we didn't have copyright for those songs. So either, in a couple of cases, the video would get taken down, or best case, it would get demonetized. So the video can get as many views as it wants. Doesn't mean anything. Also, I would put 20 quid of fuel to go to Sticky's house. I would stay there for 3-4 days. He would obviously give up 3-4 days of his time. It was very much a passion project, and it was a great passion project, and we had an absolute blast doing it, and I hope that he agrees with that. I'm sure he does. But it was very difficult. And then we had another problem. COVID, that old chestnut. What we're going to do? We tried really hard, even to the point that Sticky bought some of his own camera gear. He bought lights, he bought cameras, he bought action. And we tried to film remotely, and he sent me the footage on WeTransfer, which would often fail and be very annoying for nobody's fault. But we really tried, and we put out some videos, and it was getting really hard because I was now at a strange time. I'd moved in with my girlfriend because we had to either move in together into a 1-bedroom flat where I couldn't play the drums, or not see each other for an indefinite period of time. So I packed all my stuff, including my 27-inch iMac, you wondered what I was going to say there, into my Mark III Master MX-5 and moved in, which meant that I couldn't play the drums and I couldn't really film, because what am I going to film? I didn't even have a drum kit there. I did actually try and film. I did some practice bad tutorials like, here's how to do a single stroke roll, here's how to do a dual stroke roll. And I would move the sofa every time because I needed a bit of plain wool like I got here.
Hi folks, and welcome to Lockdown England. I'm self-isolating here in Shropshire as a result of all this terrible pandemic that's going on over the world at the moment. Some people are suffering out there. My mate Mr. Next Level Chops, Harry, is not with us. He's also self-isolating in Birmingham.
So, you know, Sticky would send me some files and some footage and I would do an edit and then I'd send it back to him and he'd do kind of, you know, ask me for some changes and we'd do a re-edit and then we'd put it out. And this was a massively lengthy process, very difficult process, you know, because he couldn't just concentrate then on presenting when I would concentrate on filming it and make sure all the cameras in focus or that the microphone switched on or anything like that. He was then having to focus on all that as well, which is a huge amount to think about when you're trying to give a history lesson, basically, and play. It became more and more difficult to know what was going to work. And this became very challenging then when you would try to justify the immense amount of time that you'd put into something only for it to get 1,000 views on YouTube. As lockdown started to lift, Sticky would come to my house, moved into a house by this point, got this room that I'm in now, a bit of a home studio. But that gave us another problem. He would come over, prep all the gear, which was, you know, a huge process. You got all these antique kits with all these little unique gubbins to put them all together. And if you forget one gubbin, then the kit isn't going to get set up properly. It's not going to work, you know, and I would have to make sure that I didn't have any teaching to do. I'd have to make sure that I didn't have any video work to do because by that point I was working as a videographer as well. I'd have to make sure that I had a totally clear diary for 2 or 3 days. He would come over, stay the night, you know, all this stuff had to be considered. And then we would work so hard. And by this point, the videos actually, we had proper mics, we had proper cameras, computers that worked. But we couldn't guarantee that the videos were going to do anywhere near what Jumping at the Bloody Woodside did 2 years ago, filmed on a camera that was miles away with a stupid tripod in the background. And it just became really hard, basically. We couldn't justify it. And it just became that we'd do it less and less frequently. And that was really difficult because we loved it. Like, we totally loved doing it. And I wish I could do it again. But this led me to another problem. Now I'd built a YouTube channel with a pretty decent following. 40,000 people around the world had thought, you know what, I'm going to subscribe to this. We had over 5 million views, which, you know, is not bad, especially for a niche. But therein lies the problem. You see, Sticky had a niche. Next Level Chops didn't have a niche. So I would then put up my videos that I would work super hard on by myself. Might be, you know, how to play this on the drums, how to be more creative on the drums, buying cool stuff for the drums. It was mainly drum stuff. And I would put this work in, spend hours, try and come up with a cool thumbnail, cool title, edit the videos, multicam, cool audio, whatever I could think of. The video would go live, be pushed out to all these 40,000 people. Nobody would click on it. Nobody had subscribed for how to play this on the drums. They'd subscribed, rightly so, for antique drum content. I'd spoken to a YouTube guru, a sort of online Mr. Miyagi, if you will. And I'd paid 180 quid to speak to this man for an hour on Zoom. That's the sort of hourly rate I want to be charging. And he basically explained to me that it wasn't clear who my audience was. And I'd not really thought of that before. People who are interested in antique drums from the 1800s are probably not going to be interested in the latest electronic sampling pad. Basically, he explained to me that YouTube, when you upload a video, it will show it to people who always click on your videos. It will show it to them first, that little handful of people, a few hundred people to start with, the really dedicated ones. It will show it to those people. If they click on it and they watch a good chunk of it, it's going to show it to a few more people. And if they click on it, they watch a fair chunk of it, it will start showing it to more and more people, eventually seeing the new people and trying to bring new people into the channel. What was happening on my part was I would release a video, and as far as I understand it, those people who always used to watch my content wouldn't click on it. So it wouldn't even get to that second round. It would just get like the 300 people, some of them would click on it, then watch a little bit of it, but they wouldn't get to that next stage because YouTube has so much content on it. Why is it going to push this stuff that people aren't really going to watch? By this point, I didn't want to build UK's Drumeo. I didn't care, basically. It wasn't on my agenda. But I did want to do something of my own. And I, you know, by that point had hopefully gained some knowledge of audio mixing, some knowledge of video production, some knowledge of presenting. It's got a picture of some happy children. Hopefully in 5 or 6 years, I'd got a little bit better at playing the drums. So it got to this point, I was like, well, what's the point? 40,000 subscribers, so what? Not making any money from it. Nobody's making any money from it. I was like, well, if I give Sticky all the videos, he can put them up on his own channel. He can build his own following from that. Have the videos, totally have them. I'm happy that I was a part of them, but I don't need to be involved from this point on. And if he makes more videos, then great. And I really hope that he does. I don't know if he is at the moment. But sitting in that car in January by myself, I was like, yeah, let's get rid of it. Let's just delete the bloody lot. So that's what I did. I went to Nando's and I sat and I went through all the stages of closing a channel, which there's a lot of times where it says, are you sure you want to do this? And you go, yes. He goes, are you sure though, really? And you go, yes. In another video, I'm going to tell you what I've been doing since then. Because I promised myself I'd have a year off YouTube. That was what I promised. I was like, I'm going to leave YouTube. I need some time to think. That lasted a week. And I was back. And what I've done since that restart is not this, by the way. This is not this channel. I'll go into that. But what I've done since then has been the most positive experience that I've ever had on YouTube in terms of my own growth and my own experience. And it was unclear, I think, when I deleted the channel. And genuinely, people reached out to me to make sure I was okay. People I didn't hear from very often, which was really touching and really, really appreciated. But I think that was definitely, for me, the right thing to do. It's probably not the right thing to do for most people. And probably if I said to the YouTube man, should I just delete it? He would have probably gone, that's a stupid thing to do. But for me, I'm kind of an all-in or, go home sort of person. That wasn't an expression. Go big or go home sort of person. And you got to know when to walk away, I think. What I want to do with this channel is not make another drum channel. I don't want that. I don't care, basically. I'll put some drum videos up, like shorts and stuff, and I'll do some stuff about drums. But I want it to be about being a human being that works as a musician. What things can you avoid? How can you spend your time better? How can you get more out of your practice sessions? How can you make more money from your music? That's what I want to do with this channel. I don't want another drum channel. I say I've got another drum channel though. That's sort of what I did. But that one's better. The bits of me are better than what was of me on the old one. And I'm going to talk about that in another video. So, if you'd like to see more, please subscribe. And leave a big thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. And I will see you again on the Harry Weston C channel before too long. Thanks so much for watching. Bye bye for now.